All right. Good morning. The first thing I wanted to do was to share a little bit, that I happen to be involved in this morning. My wife and I next weekend are planning on being over in Phoenix for a revival that's going on over there. So I was just looking into, Phoenix hotels, something, and I looked up budget hotels, and I found this one, which I thought was hilarious. Sleeps 99, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. And I was like, wow, I guess that's how you get to the top of the list for somebody's, listing. You just make it an absolute perfect price per person. So this would be what, 5.8 cents a person or so.
And I thought dorm life was bad.
Yeah. How deep do you got to stack them to get, 99 into one room and 1 bathroom?
Well, 12 guys, 2 bathrooms.
Yeah. But the other thing that that I wanted to point out, a lot of people have this concept in their minds that the World Wide Web and internet providers and all that sort of thing are somehow fair and balanced and equitable based on what we think should be fair and balanced and equitable. I don't know if you've heard about you may have seen the commercials from Amazon recently talking about a new House bill, I think it's House or Senate bill, not sure, that would require a provider of services, like in this case shipping services, to give the exact same preference to every business, regardless of whether that business contributes to their profit margin. In other words, the Amazon Prime, I don't know if you've heard about it, but they have that guaranteed 2-day delivery for certain things. The reason they can do that is they stock fulfillment centers or warehouses in the areas nearby everywhere, pretty much in America. They've got these fulfillment centers loaded full of things. Well, the people who provide stuff to the fulfillment centers pay a little bit of a premium, as I understand it, to have their articles in those fulfillment centers. And Amazon Prime subsequently lists those things as being part of the guaranteed 2-day delivery. Sounds great. Sounds like a good business model. But lawmakers are now saying, oh no, you have to provide equal representation in your warehouses, in your advertising, etc., for everyone, regardless of whether they help your business model. It's the old ultimate fairness to the detriment of your business. So as I was looking at this, here we are on Expedia, and they say it very blatantly here. What we are paid impacts our sort order. And I went and I followed that over to here, and it says for lodging, in addition to all the things that we do, best price, best location, distance from, whatever, they actually say we are displaying properties with a similar offer than a booking, which earns more compensation, will feature higher on our search results. In other words, if Expedia gets paid more by whoever lists these things, they're going to be listed in what appears to be a more favorable position than those who pay less. We have to realize that when we are understanding what we are reading. People, everybody has this concept that the internet is free, but no, the internet's a business. And so money has to be somewhere in there. It's like Google. And if you remember Google, Yahoo, Hotmail, and back in the day before Gmail, it was called Google Mail. I actually started when it was mail.google.com. But they had, a lot of people don't understand how is it that you can host millions of people's email for free. Well, the reason is they derive business intelligence from what you receive, what you send, what you talk about, etc. I have literally, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, I've gone out and done a search for, I don't know, Humboldt County history, which is where my family first came to California. Humboldt County history. And the next thing I know, I'm getting, hotel offers in Eureka, California, or whatever. Most people tend to gloss over that, but your free email is not free. Your free email allows the hosting company to review your email and then send you targeted advertising based on that, based on your interests. So just be aware, the internet is a business. Anybody who thinks that it's free and fair and equitable and everybody has the same shot at it or whatever doesn't realize that, those great big monster server farms and big monster pipes onto the internet and stuff come at a cost. And that cost has to be realized somewhere. So just something to think about when you are doing one of the things that I frequently stress to people, and that is when you are researching something, always, always, always research past the headlines. The headlines are there to draw your interest. They are not there to provide balanced facts. So long as you are aware of that, that gives you a perspective to where you can say, okay, let's see what the real story is and dig down to it. And then, of course, you have news outlets that tend to lean one way or the other, depending upon their particular interests or proclivities or, compensated spokesman or whatever. Same thing. You need to do your research. Do what's called due diligence. Due diligence. That means try and make sure that your research is not tainted based on the taint of the people that you're using when you obtain your research. Just a thought there. Any discussion, Chris, on that?
Due diligence and due care is also a topic, along with the topic that we're talking about today.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Due diligence is really important. Okay, I see Harminder is joining, but he doesn't have audio yet. Anyway, one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and this was not on the agenda, one of the things I wanted to bring up was a discussion about Windows 7. For those of us that don't understand it, Windows 7 is long out of support date. Good morning, Harminder. We are IT professionals, and the problem we run into is that there are some very ancient technologies out there. One of which is Windows 7. It was around more than 10 years. It's an extremely well-liked operating system, but as you can see here, support for Windows 7 ended January of 2020. That was 2 years and 3 months ago. Okay, just to put it into perspective. Now, the problem we run into is end of support means that security updates and fixes are no longer being provided. So anyone that's running Windows 7 and vulnerabilities are discovered in it, those vulnerabilities will remain until they change operating systems. So, for example, the Windows Print Nightmare, I think it was called Print Nightmare, it had been a vulnerability that had been out there for 14 years before it was discovered. And on Windows 7, it may or may not be patched, because Print Nightmare was discovered after Windows 7 went out of support. So anybody that's still using Windows 7 on a networked computer, even one at your own home, you are in dire need of upgrade. Dire need, in order to make sure that you keep your computers, your networks, your data, anything that connects to your networks, keep them all safe. So end of support really means you're on your own. And that's never good. So if you know of anybody that has Windows 7, be certain that there is an upgrade path to get it off of Windows 7. Not, well, we'll put it onto a smaller subnet, or we'll move it off to this little segregated network or whatever. Those are all workarounds. The smart thing to do is to upgrade your OS. Like it says here, while you could continue to use your PC running Windows 7 without continued software and security updates, it would be at greater risk for viruses and malware. So don't do it. Avoid it, and recommend that everybody around you. I still know somebody that's running Windows 7 at home, and every time I talk to them, it's like, dude, you've got to get rid of that. You've got to upgrade it. It is not safe, and you are putting your family at risk of waking up to a bunch of black screens, or worse yet, having all of your family photos, shown out on the front page of the Washington Post. Oh, look, this is a murderer or whatever. They can say whatever they want to make it juicy using your personal data. So do yourself a favor. Yeah, Chris.
Little tabletop exercise for everybody. And it's easy to talk to a home user and say, hey, update, it's fine. When you get out to the work world, though, the tabletop exercise is, that Windows 7 is at end of life. However, you have an enterprise of, let's say, upwards of 1,000 users. Mm-hmm. And you have to upgrade everybody from Windows 7 to Windows 10. The problem is accounting, and I'm using accounting as an example, has this program that if you upgrade to Windows 10 and your testers tested it, it fails and fails horribly. What do you do?
Right. And we've encountered that.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good point. There are, I know, for the organization that we support, one of the things that we had as part of the Windows 10 discussion was they have some extremely specialized equipment that's used for particulate sampling or something, and the bloomin' test equipment is like $250,000 to buy this thing. And oh, by the way, it plugs in using those old 9-pin serial cables to the back of a computer, and after Windows 7, everything went south. Your system stopped working, and so the customers were like, we have to keep Windows 7. Well, no, let's find a way to make this work with Windows 10. Let's find a way. And if that doesn't work, you better put in your budget that you're replacing this big monster piece of equipment. Because pretty soon now, that thing is going to be either in a room of its own without network, or it's going to be upgraded. And it'll be your choice. Yeah, very good thought or idea about that. So if you know anybody that's running Windows 7, home or office, anywhere, professional, doesn't matter, enterprise, doesn't matter, home, doesn't matter, all of the versions are past support by more than 2 years. They must be removed. So just something to bring up there. So let's talk about codes of ethics. Sounds boring. But why is such emphasis being placed on on codes of ethics? Any ideas? Any thoughts? What's the big deal about a code of ethics? You don't have code of ethics in your, butchers union, and you don't have code of ethics in your Teamsters, the guys that drive trucks. So what is? Oh, Harminder, go ahead.
Okay. The code of ethics is very important. Whatever we do in our life, doesn't matter we are working in a professional job, doesn't matter we are working in an unprofessional job, we have to be follow the certain procedure, rule and regulation to do our job good. It is good for us and it is good for the organization and it is good for the other people too. Because when we do our job, doesn't matter wherever we have to be follow some ethics, some rules. So that's why if we don't have a code of ethics, then we use the things in the wrong way, and we always think about our benefit unless our benefit instead of the organization, the job we do. It is very, very important in everywhere code of ethics. Doesn't matter what kind of job it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Very good. I appreciate that, Harminder, and I think you are spot on in that review or analysis. Chris, do you have anything before we move into it directly?
I think Harminder hit it on the head. It's a set of rules, or not rules. It's a set of guidance that you. If you work for a company that doesn't necessarily have policies or procedures in place, that's your guiding light to say, is this right? Is this wrong? How do I proceed? What to do? And that's the whole thing about the code of ethics is it gives you what you should be doing in your heart. That is the right thing, the right thing, mm-hmm. according to the IFC2.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up, Chris. How many people in your security guides or the articles that you're reading or anything like that, especially in Hollywood, where a lot of people tend to get their indoctrination into cybersecurity, hear about those three words: the right thing. What does that mean? Do the right thing, because we are in our society. We are taught that you are number one. Remember, if you look at all the advertising campaigns, you deserve to drive a Lincoln. You deserve Chanel number 5. These sorts of things. They say that you're special and you're unique and you're individual and you're just such a special person that you deserve this 2-for-1 taco deal. They're using flattery and selfishness. Think about that. Selfishness, self-centeredness, to drive their advertising campaigns. But the point of it all is, when you get into an organization and you happen to have in your possession, and that includes up here, in your possession, information that no one else in the organization has, you are then placed into a position where you could, if you chose to, do things that were not legal or ethical or moral, and no one would catch you. So there's a very old book, and I'm sure many of you may have read it. It's called The Book of Questions. Have you ever heard of that one, Chris? The Book of Questions? Okay. I'm going to see if I can find some like that on the internet. Maybe we can take a look at it. But the Book of Questions is sort of an ethics exercise, and it's just questions. If you could develop an elixir that would save 2 million lives, but it took 200 lives that would guaranteed die as, in order to develop this elixir, would you do so? Those sorts of things. It's an ethics-based question, and I'll go down to the very basic one that we've probably all encountered. In the middle of the night, when you're driving home from work and there's no one else on the road, and you come across a four-way stop, do you stop? Do you do the right thing? The law says stop. Yes, Harminder.
So I'm just talking about my example. Sometimes when how you share the example, if it is in night time, I just stop a little bit, then I don't stop properly, I just stop, then I go. But still I have a scaredness in my head. If somebody watch me, police saw me, or they have a camera, then I got a ticket. So it is an example of code of ethics. I still have a little bit scary, or in my mind, I have to follow the rule and regulations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me give another question, because we've all encountered this. How many of you have been driving along, maybe exceeding the speed limit a little bit, and then you see a police cruiser ahead of you, and you slow down? I don't have to worry about that because I don't exceed the speed limit, for example. And now some people are like, oh, well, that's taking it to the extreme. But honestly, it's an ethics-based question. If the speed limit says 55 and you go 59 or 56 or 100, aren't those all violations? So, Chris.
I have a friend who's a cop, and I asked him about that, and he goes, there's a flow of traffic rule. And he goes, as long as if you're going that speed limit, stay to the right side. If you're going to go faster than that, go to the left side. And then he sits there and tells me, hey, you know that there's speeding tickets that are a cost based on speed? He told me that 5 miles per hour, not worth our time, not worth our trouble. He goes 10 miles per hour, maybe. He goes, but if you go 15 and you start doing dangerous stuff, that's when we care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
Maryland, mind you, but
well, it all boils down to what drives your decision to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give an example. It's just observational. This is not statistically based or anything. But if you've ever been in an environment where the requirement to be there is a high-level security clearance, like higher than top secret. And okay, for those of you who know the levels, top secret is the top, but then they have what are called compartmentalized or program clearances that are at the top secret level, but they're only for certain groups of people. So they consider that, some people call that above top secret. It's not really. It's top secret, this compartment or this program or whatever. So this is just my observation. I had a top secret clearance for 38 years, and I was SCI eligible. In other words, I could have been put into one of those programs, read onto those programs, and then had access. But my observation is that when you get up to that high level of clearance, the thing that got you that clearance was having a clear background investigation. Okay? The people who have clear background investigations tend to be people who are somewhat boring. Mundane lives. People who go to church every Sunday. People who, grew up sitting around the edges of the playground, not the ones that are swinging from the monkey bars, that sort of stuff. Why? Because they're the ones that have the clean backgrounds. They're the ones that didn't steal grandma's Plymouth for a joyride. They're the ones that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They have the clear background and are, maybe it was just a case of opportunity. Maybe. But it comes down to that question of that four-way stop. Do you stop? In other words, are you driven by something, compelled by something, or more appropriately, restrained by something that you choose to follow? I will tell you, if it says that, well, up here in Arizona, there's a stretch of interstate where the speed limit's 75. I go like 72, and there are people that are passing me like I'm standing still. But, okay, that's their decision, not mine. So when it comes to a code of ethics, when you walk into a workplace, you, as a cybersecurity professional, you have that ability to pull the wool over the eyes of everyone, if not nearly everyone, in that organization. You can do all sorts of stuff and no one would know. And that's the problem with having advanced training in a very complex area like cybersecurity. You can get away with stuff. It is possible to get away with stuff. Additionally, and we've mentioned this multiple times, the training you receive to get a degree, or a cybersecurity degree or a cybersecurity certification, that in itself can be used for both positive as well as negative reasons. They can be used to make society better, or they can be used to make you better. Same skills, same tools. And that's the problem you run into, is that, your C-suite executives read read the headlines, and they say, cybersecurity is full of crooks. So how do you get hired? How do you get selected over a field of other people that are, all have equal or better skills than you do? Well, I think, in my personal opinion, the way to differentiate yourself is to point out or demonstrate that you know what is the right thing to do. Chris?
It also works the other way, as you as a seeker. There are criminal organizations that are looking for people who are, I want to say, disgruntled or kind of disarrayed by the whole industry. Mm-hmm. And they're just looking for anything to get that first job. And if they don't ask the right questions to the company, they're probably walking into a company that's not doing the right thing.
Right. Yeah. There can be people who aren't ethically driven at all levels. It could include, and these probably make it to, HBO movies or whatever, but there could be CEOs. There could be a board of directors. There could be, all sorts of groups of people or individuals that don't have that same foundation, that same anchor. And so that's why in the cybersecurity community, they have opted to develop and require their members to adhere to a code of ethics. And what basically does a code of ethics stipulate? Anybody? What does a code of ethics say, generally speaking? Okay. Well, let's let's take a look at our code of ethics here for CS-Sensei. This is at the top of our Facebook page, and like it says at the very top, all CS-Sensei members should read and agree to adhere to this code of ethics. In other words, this is something that if you can make sure you start your cybersecurity learning with this in mind. You know, this is the lowest I will go and no lower. You build a foundation for a successful cybersecurity career. But like it says here, the primary goal of the CS-Sensei cohort is to offer opportunities for skills acquisition and advancement in the cybersecurity arena. CS-Sensei adopts and adheres to practices that will ensure the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, there's the CIA triad, of organizational information resources. To achieve this goal, CS-Sensei members and interns must reflect the highest standards of ethical conduct. You notice so far I haven't said a thing about you got to be good techies. You got to be able to, you know, make a firewall sing. No, I haven't said anything about that. Okay? You have to reflect the highest standards of ethical conduct. That differentiates you from a lot of people, just to begin with. Therefore, CS-Sensei has established the following code of ethics and requires its observance as a prerequisite for membership and affiliation. I will give you an example. Let's say somebody is looking to get a job from this group. You've been with us for months, and you decide that you're going to try and go for a job. In order to use CS-Sensei as part of your experience in your resume, and maybe ask for Chris or me to offer a reference letter for you, one of the things that we will require is that you sign the code of ethics. It's not that you're a good techie or not, but we're not going to place someone, we're not going to place our name on someone who may go in and destroy an organization or harm it because they thought they should have gotten promoted and they didn't, or whatever. Okay? So in order to say that you belong to CS-Sensei, we're telling everyone you have to agree to adhere to this. If you don't, you can sit and learn all you like, but don't use our name when you're talking about something that you've done. Anyway, you hereby certify that you will act legally with honor, responsibility, and honesty as you implement the knowledge you've gained. You will perform all professional activities and duties in accordance with all applicable laws and the highest ethical principles. There we go. The right thing. You will promote generally accepted information security, current best practices and standards. Standards tend to point out what is acceptable levels of activity. You will maintain appropriate confidentiality of proprietary or otherwise sensitive information encountered in the course of professional activities. Let me give you an example. Let's say I worked for a particular company, and that particular company happened to still be running their network on Windows 7 workstations. You can work on trying to help them understand the extreme need for them to upgrade, but you shouldn't come into a public forum like CS-Sensei and say, let's say, I'm just throwing this out, Norfolk Southern Railroad, all right? Norfolk Southern Railroad. I work for Norfolk Southern, and they're still using Windows 7. Ha, 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 ha. You have just divulged a vulnerability for your organization to the public. That's what you just agreed you would not do. Okay? So don't come in here and tattle about your organizations. Now, you may be able to genericize it, but the point is you are not a conduit for somebody to gain information that can be used against your employer. All right? You maintain confidentiality and propriety for your organizations. You refrain from activities which might constitute a conflict of interest or otherwise damage the reputation of or is detrimental to your employers, the information security profession, or this CS-Sensei cohort. And you will not intentionally injure or impugn the professional reputation or practice of colleagues, clients, or employees. An example would be, yeah, I work for my boss. His name is, Joseph Smith, and he's a real jerk. Well, guess what? You have just intentionally injured the reputation of your supervisor, whether he's a jerk or not. It is not your point to point that out. You can talk about things without divulging things. Professionally, we're allowed to share, but we're not supposed to be having a series of videos or webinars or whatever that are going to give someone ideas for how they can go in and compromise your networks. See what I'm saying? You can sit there and say, oh, everything sucks. I'll give an example again. This guy I knew in Oklahoma, he thought that the network security was terrible. So he took it upon himself as a help desk member that worked for me to try and help, fix customers. They said, oh, well, my XYZ isn't working. He's like, oh, I can fix that. He'd go in and he'd mash around in your registry and get things running. The issue is that registry change was not approved. He made things work, but he did not do it in the right manner. He did not work to get that registry change accepted as being a best practice. He just said, I can do it, I can fix it, I can get you off the phone, get you back to work faster, and therefore I will do it. He was the hero to the customers. But it got him, in the long run, under criminal investigation. It can and does happen. So that's why you have to, act. You've heard the phrase above board. Everything is, to where you can go into a room and talk about it, and you will not be, nobody's going to look at you and say, really? Your boss is that much of a jerk? Why are you telling us this? What if this guy happens to be the next door neighbor of your boss? You may find yourself, saying that infinite phrase that I consider to be part of a profession that is not a profession with a future. And that phrase is, would you like fries with that? Think about it. Think about it. You can be the best techie in the world and still not have a job because you don't have that ethical boundary that you have placed on yourself. Any questions? Discussion? Chris, anything?
Unmute. I have nothing else to say, Scotty. That's hitting it hard.
Yeah. I will say in the Bible, there's actually a phrase that says a name is to be valued above rubies and riches. And basically what it means is your reputation is one of the most valuable things that you can achieve and protect.
I will say that you will be challenged throughout your career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those challenges will occur.
I think one of the best TV series you can see is the Star Trek series.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a document that's their code of ethics called the Prime Directive.
There you go.
And the main theme or the main whole concept is they are presented with situations that challenges the Prime Directive.
Mm-hmm.
And what does the captain do? Or what does the leader do? And then how does the leader respond to how does the leader lead his staff about it?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And also be aware that, that Prime Directive discussion, that whole
Mm-hmm.
thing, remember that it's written by script writers who are trying to watch it.
Yeah.
It is not a good, I have good ethics because I watched Star Trek: The Next Generation.
No. I didn't mean to do that. I'm just trying to do the entertainment connection to it because I struggle with that part of the homework.
Yeah. It's a very, very good point to make.
Mm-hmm.
One example of an ethics discussion. It wasn't cybersecurity. It was workplace ethics. In the Pentagon, they have lots of parking lots, and the more people you transport, or if you're handicapped or whatever, the closer you get to park to the building. Literally, if it's raining, your run to your car is shorter, if you think about it that way. Well, I was in the Pentagon, working at this particular organization, cubicle city inside the Pentagon, and I was I think I was a GS-7 at the time, and I rode the metro every day into work because the metro stopped right next to the Pentagon. At that time, it actually stopped in the basement of the Pentagon, and you'd go up steps and you'd be right in the building. They've sort of moved it away as a result of 9/11, so it's now a couple 100 feet away from the building. But the interesting thing is that I can remember, and I'm not going to mention names, but some guy who was a GS-11, supposedly more respectable, higher on the food chain, etc., walked up to me one day and said, "Here, sign this." And I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "Oh, it's just a form that you can help me out by signing it." And I looked at it, and it's a carpool agreement. And I started to read it, and he said, "You don't have to read it, just sign it. Thank you. I would appreciate it if you just sign it." And I was reading it, and it says, "I am a member of this person's carpool." And what this person was trying to do was to get a parking space closer to the building, reserved, so that he could park closer to the building and wouldn't have to hunt around for parking spaces, etc., etc. But the way he was doing it was he was getting, innocent little people like me who he knew didn't drive to sign and say, "I'm a member of his carpool." And he said, "Well, if you drive in, I'll give you the permit and you can park there. No problem, no worries." And I said, "But I'm not a member of your carpool. We don't even live in the same area. I couldn't be a member of your carpool." He said, "It doesn't matter. You don't drive anyway. Just sign this. You'll be doing me a favor." And I looked him straight in the eyes and I said, "You want me to lie?" And he grabbed the sheet back from me and he said, "Never mind." And he turned around and walked away. Could I have signed it? Sure. Would it have hurt me? Probably not. Would anybody have discovered it? Probably not. Would it have helped my coworker? Absolutely. Did it ask me to lie? Yes. And that's where I drew the line. You're asking me to sign my name saying something that's not true. My name is more important than this piece of paper. And I said no. he sort of got really tight-jawed at me about it, but my point was that I have boundaries beyond which I'm not willing to go. Any thoughts?
Another ultimate challenge is the reverse of, let's say your boss asks you to do something and it's totally unethical.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the best guidance advice would be sit down with the boss, ask your questions, but make sure you get in writing his orders.
Right.
And you do it, but you make sure it's 100% in writing, that it's clear that he's ordering you to do it, or she.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's one. Here's another one that a lot of people may not think about. What if you're going to college and you have a paper to write? Why not just copy and paste from the internet? That is called plagiarism, and every educational institution in America certifies that they will not permit plagiarism. All the colleges and universities that you submit papers to, especially if you do it online, they have what are called plagiarism filters. And even if you get past the plagiarism filter today with your copy and paste, you likely won't get past it tomorrow with your copy and paste. If you're asked to write a paper, write a paper. You can use those resources and cite them at the bottom and say, this is where I got the information. But if all you're doing is copying and pasting it, saying, oh, this is my paper, it's not your paper. See what I'm saying? You may think, oh, what's the big deal? Somebody else has already done the research on it. I'll just take that and just happen to forget to include them as my credits. Well, that is not good ethical practice for a student or any educational institution. So don't do it. You can have the information, you can be staring at it right here on your screen, and then retype it in a manner that you believe is your rewording of what they did. Absolutely. And then cite your source down at the bottom. Absolutely. But don't copy and paste. That's called plagiarism, and that's against ethical principles for every college and university. Okay? That's another one. So in the long run, you have to decide where you will and where you will not travel. And that's why the code of ethics is there. Oh, Cert Mike also pointed out, using the ISC squared code of ethics, it says in there that you will also not allow and you will report violations of the code of ethics from people around you, your coworkers, your people who are in your cohorts, people who are online, saying, I just did X, Y, Z or whatever. You're required to report them. Even if that gets you renamed, oh, you're a goody two-shoes, or oh, you're a Boy Scout, or oh, you're just being overly sensitive, or whatever. I'm sorry, but I will not perform, nor will I allow ethics to be second on somebody's discussion list. Oh, yeah, but, it'll get us through today. Sorry. Not going to do it. I'm not going to go there. When I walk into a room in my profession, everyone in that room knows that I follow ethical principles, and I will not waver from that. That's why our CISO, and I are on a first name basis. I can chat with that person anytime I like about anything I like, and that person shares a lot with me because that person knows that I'm not here to capture the dirt for the grapevine. I'm here to professionally support her and what we do. Thoughts? Any ideas? Anyway, just remember that your reputation, your name, has to be something that people gives you pride in understanding what you're doing, and it keeps you away from any questionable activities, questionable decisions. We used to have a saying when we were on the Presidential Commission, is this information, do we want this to be seen on the front page of the Washington Post? If it stands up to scrutiny, it'll stand up to scrutiny by the millions, not just by one or two. Always choose to do the right thing. Don't ever violate that or start, say, nobody's, like with the driving thing, nobody's going to catch me. I will tell you, I stop at the four-way stop in the middle of the night when there's nobody around, and I don't feel bad about it at all. Oh, I just lost 2 seconds off my homeward trip. I'm driven by more than will I get caught. Okay? All right. That's all I had for this morning. Chris, Harminder, did you guys have anything?
I clicked the link for your 100. There's a book review of 100 questions.
Yeah, I saw that.
From a blog.
And it's a review.
She actually lists the questions, and she provides. Looks like she provides some of her own. Hang on, it's not all of them. I'm reading right now. Oh, further questions. I'm not sure it's an exact copy of the book. I'm actually reading the introduction right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And honestly, some of these questions are really difficult. Really difficult. And I said the save 2 million by 200 dying. Well, let's take that to a more extreme. Save 2 million by one dying excruciatingly horribly.
The first one says, for a person you love dearly, would you be willing to move to a distant country, knowing there would be little chance of seeing your friends or family again?
Right. These are not a big deal or anything, but they are questions that you should consider before the situation occurs. So that way you know. And you can remind yourself when the situation occurs, hey, this is one of those things that Scotty talked about. And my hope is that you will always make the right choice.
These questions get really sensitive and deep too. I'm reading 26. Would you be willing to murder an innocent person if it would end world hunger?
There you go. There you go. And that one was actually one of the Star Trek ones, where they supposedly flew back to World War II and they had the opportunity to, remove Hitler or something, I think is what it was.
Some of these you don't want to go out in public about, like, what was your best experience with drugs or alcohol, your worst experience?
Right. Yeah. I don't know if the four-way stop sign is in there, but yeah, it'd be fun to try to look at it. But some of these are ethics-based. Some of them maybe not. But good reading, good things to think about before they occur. Anyway, I'm going to get going. We've held on long enough. I really do appreciate you guys participating in this, and without people talking about this, this becomes a one-man show, and that is not what I'm all about. I want this to benefit everyone. I want people to be comfortable coming and sharing what they think or they feel or what they've found or what they've discovered. What makes you excited? That's the fun stuff. That's what makes this worthwhile. Anyway, everybody have a great Saturday, and we will talk to you guys later.
Best, Scotty. Bye, Harminder.